I felt like the only person that's going to help me get through this kidnapping program is a Navy SEAL. So I started to search for a Navy SEAL. Welcome to Mindset Lessons from the Field. I'm Gina Casazza, the author of the upcoming memoir, Training with the SEAL, and I am also today's guest. That is right. This episode is the episode that many of you have been asking for, and I'm going to take my most asked questions and answer them on today's show. And the number one question I get is, why and how did I end up training with a Navy SEAL? Because without answering that question, this podcast would never have existed. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. It was beginning 2021. I was living in Studio City, California. My mom was visiting me. She was in my apartment with me. The news, I believe, was on. I just remember it being a very, very unsafe time. Like, I lived in LA for almost 10 years, and I would walk around by myself frequently and sometimes at night. And I did not feel safe to do that during that time. I wasn't feeling safe at all. And I remember looking at my mom going, "Do you think I can survive a kidnapping?" And she was like, no, you can't. I was like, "What? You don't think I can survive a kidnapping?" And she was like, "No, look at you." And for those of you that don't know or haven't seen photos, I am 5 feet tall. And at the time I was under 100 pounds. And I was doing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu with some friends, but I used to come home after what I learned, and I would show my brothers, and and they would just like put me in my place. I would just like, "It worked at Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Why isn't it working here? It's supposed to work here. I was doing really good there." And and then it would just make me feel like even more weak, like super, super weak. And I remember saying to my mom, like, there has to be like a kidnapping school. There has to be something that teaches you how to survive a kidnapping or what to do in a kidnapping, just like a weekend women's self-defense course that people have. But this, and I remember watching, I believe it was on White Collar, where I believe it was, where the main character, Neil Caffrey, he was in the parking lot and some guy like came up in front of a woman. I mean, behind a woman, came up behind a woman and grabbed her as she was putting groceries in the trunk. And I remember like the main character like went to go and stop it. And they were like, "No, we're just role playing. Like, it's a self-defense thing, like to teach her what to do, like in case someone does do that." And I remember that. I'm not sure if that's real or not, but I remember it in my mind. And I'm like, there has to be something like that. Like, so that's what I was looking for. I was looking for like a kidnapping school where you sign up, you tell them where you live, and at some point they stalk you and like, you know, come up from behind you while you're putting groceries in, totally catch you off guard, and you gotta like get out of it. And then they recap and maybe do it again and again. I don't know. I was just thinking that should be a school now. Someone who's listening to that can turn that into a business. So, so that's what I was envisioning. So I'm Googling kidnapping school in Los Angeles, California, and I'm trying to find this. And I stumble across a survival school, Thomas Coyne's survival school here in Los Angeles. And they had a kidnapping thing. I saw a photo. It said SEER, and it had the word kidnapping in the description. I didn't really know what SEER meant. I really didn't read the whole description. I just saw kidnapping, and I saw the photo, and the photo was like a person with with a bag over their head and zip ties around their wrists and behind their back. And I was like, oh my God, I think this is what I'm looking for. So I call the school. Thomas answers, and I explain the situation, and he was like, "Oh, you got to do our SEER program." And I was like, I'm not sure if he actually like got into explaining what it was, but he did mention like you get kidnapped and there's a torture period and stuff. But like, I didn't remember him saying like you get hunted in the woods all night or something like that. I don't remember like that part. But I remember just being like, great, it's like kidnapping. I'm into it. And he was like, this current class is booked up. And I'm like, well, I'm planning on leaving LA by this summer. And he said, well, you could join and have a membership. And if you get a membership for the year, you get automatically into that. So I was like, okay, I'll do the membership for the year. And then I ended up being able to go. And now this was in May. And I'm pretty sure this is like the end of January, beginning February. It's around that time. And I looked further into it after I paid. So like once I got off the phone with him, I bought the membership, I signed up, I was ready to go. Like it was like pretty instant after that phone call. And I had until May, and I'm looking further into it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. Like you're getting hunted in the wood. This is now when I'm processing what exactly I just signed up for, this civilian SEER program, which stands for Survival, Invasion, Resistance, Escape. So they teach you survival skills. You get kidnapped. They torture you. You get an opportunity to escape. They hunt you all night in the woods, and then you debrief in the morning on how you did. And they're hunting you all night, by the way. So you have to like not get recaptured, and you have to make it through the night. And I'm just like, well, I'm scared of the dark. I'm scared of anything that moves. I don't like creepy crawlers, anything like that. I'm freezing all the time as a petite, under 100-pound human being. My family's never camped a day in their life. I have, but this is a little different, I think. Like, and I really didn't camp. You know, I camped. I've camped. No, I've camped. Camped. I hiked down the Grand Canyon and I hiked down the Grand Canyon, a 10-mile hike, and I stayed there for like 2-3 days. One of the guys I was with was the Boy Scout, so I didn't really have to know much. I just did what he said. So it was, I mean, I wasn't prepared for it. I needed to get equipment, like a tent, a sleeping bag, all this stuff for the weekend. And I remember, by the way, I'm going to do a whole episode on this SEER, but so that'll be another episode. So I really want to stick with like the main question on how this podcast ended up being, because like how I ended up training with the SEAL. But I do remember like not getting anything until like 2 days beforehand, because I was like, why would I need a tent? Why would I need any of that stuff? You're kidnapping me. Like, I'm not going to be kidnapped in real life being like, let me go get my tent to sleep in. So, but I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get into that in the next episode, and we'll do not the next episode. One of the episodes, we will do a SEER one. So let's get back to what was going on. So I ended up signing up for the school, kind of panicking that I wasn't ready for it. And I just finished reading the book in December, at the end of December, called Living with the SEAL by Jesse Itzler. And I remember reading that book and like doing push-ups and sit-ups and feeling inspired. So I was like, wow, if this book could get me to do push-ups and sit-ups, I don't work out. I don't like working out. Like, it's not fun for me. I don't understand people like, it releases endorphins to feel good. I was like, what like, where is the feel good part? Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. So I was like, if this book can do it, I got to find a Navy SEAL. Like, that's who's this book is about, that's getting me to want to work out. So I felt like the only person that's going to help me get through this kidnapping program is a Navy SEAL. So I started to search for a Navy SEAL. And I remember asking some friends that I knew were in the Navy, and they were like, go down to Coronado. They're all there. And I was like, no, but like, I don't know. I was like, they must be busy. Like, I want like a retired person, or like someone that could do, I really wanted one-on-one training. I figured like, you know, like a personal trainer, but a Navy SEAL. And I couldn't find it. And I remember searching, and John McLaren came up, and I saw his program, Team Eagle One. And I remember I was like, no, not happening. I'm not embarrassing myself in front of a bunch of people I don't know. Like, That's why I want the one-on-one training. And by the way, I want to back up a little bit because I remember when I asked my mom about the whole like mindset, you know, like kidnapping and all this other stuff, like she was like, we need to get tougher. Like we need to strengthen our mindset, and we need to strengthen our like physical strength too. She's like, we need to get tougher. And I remember, like I said, I was reading that book and I'm like, oh, I know just the person. So as I'm also doing then signing up for this kidnapping, I'm also looking for this Navy SEAL because it's all in my head. Like I need a Navy SEAL to train me. And then I was thinking could also train my mom because she's all like, I need to get tough too in this weird world that we're living in. So I was like, that'd be good. We can do it together. Well, I couldn't find anyone for one-on-one. It's like mid-February, end of February, I think. And I'm like, it's coming up. Like May is around the corner. I'm not ready. So I was like, the only person I could reach out to and the only one I'm seeing is John McLaren. I gotta do this. So I email him and I said, hi, I know your program is for special forces, but I just paid to get kidnapped. I'm a civilian and I'm not going to make it. Can I please come do your program for a day? I just want to see if I can make it through. I just want to know if I won't quit and I make it to the end. I'd feel strong or whatever. And then I feel like if I could go through a day of that, my mind, all I need, I just always believe like if you have a strong mindset, like you'll get through anything. Like it's like everything is teachable, but you really, really, and I believe the mindset gets stronger and stronger and stronger every day if you feed it. But so I was like, all right, as long as I know like I'm mentally tough, I could get through it. Like this is one day's fine. So he messaged me back and he was like, oh, if you're crazy enough to pay to get kidnapped, please come on down. So I was like, okay. I remember it was like Wednesday or something like that when I was messaging him. It was like midweek. And I remember like, okay, I'll let you know what day I'm going to come. Because I'm thinking I'm going to come like right before this kidnapping program. I figured I'll go, you know, do the Navy SEAL thing and then boom, go right into kidnapping, like with all the 1 day skills. This is how naive I am. And like gonna come out in Navy SEAL after 1 day of training or like a ninja. But he messaged me back and he was like, I'll see you Sunday. I'm sorry. He was like, he messaged me back and he said, I said, I'll let you know when. And he goes, I'll see you Sunday. And I was like, oh crap, I'll see you Sunday. And now I was committed because for me, I was always taught, like when you tell someone something, you follow through on it. You don't, unless like death or like something really, really bad comes up, like there's no canceling. So I'm like, Sunday, okay. Sunday, I'm going to Navy SEAL training. I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. I don't know what to do. At the time though, TB12, Tom Brady's company, was doing like some specials where they're doing like one-on-one virtual training for like $50. So I was doing that, I think like once a month or every other week or something like that. But it was really like on your own and I wasn't really doing it. Like I was getting the coaching and talking to him and it was more talking than actually doing. And then I would do it on my own, but I feel like I don't really push myself as much as I should, you know? So there was really no prepping for this Navy SEAL thing. There was, you know, I was just like, let's just see what happens. And Saturday comes around and I can't sleep. I'm like really nervous all day. I'm like jittery. And my dad was in town. He was visiting and he goes, Gina, what are you so nervous about? You're not wrestling a lion. You're doing push-ups. And I was like, oh my God, that's a really good perspective. I'm not wrestling a lion. I'm doing push-ups. And that just like calmed everything down. It put everything in perspective. Like I'm not actually going to butts. Like I'm not going to real Navy SEAL training. I mean, I'm going to a prep program for 1 day, a couple of hours. There's no like, you know, it really grounded me. So I still couldn't sleep though. I was tossing and turning all night. In the morning, I just felt a little nauseous to eat, but I knew I had to like put something down. So I had a smoothie. And then I drove to training. And like, I remember he gave a list of what you needed. It was like boots and boots, combat boots. It was fatigues, a white t-shirt, belt. And I was like, I don't have any of that. I ended up like getting a white t-shirt that was like inside out. That was my brother's. It didn't really fit. I wore yoga pants because all I had. And I wore combat boots, but they're fashion boots. They're women combat fashion boots. You know, they're made to look cute in the club, not to go to war. So I show up with that. I don't even know if I could run in these things. I don't know what's going to happen. And I remember parking and finding them. Like, you couldn't miss them. First of all, they look like real G.I. Joe action figures in the flash. There was a lot of them. They're huge. Their arms were the size of my entire body. You couldn't miss Coach Mac either. And he had this giant Rottweiler with him that was like half the size of me. So to say I was intimidated is an understatement. I like walked back to my car. I was like, no, I'm done. I'm not doing this. And then I called my uncle, who was a Marine. I'm telling him what's going on. I'm like, I really got it. I like needed a pep talk to buck up, to get myself to just say hello. And so he did that. And I walked over to them. I said hello, and training began. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by my absolute favorite company. If you know me or seen videos or photos of me, then you know I always have one on my wrist. I absolutely adore this company, DiscoverOmnia.com. DiscoverOmnia.com is the world's first smart crystal bracelet. Every single bracelet is handmade in the USA using real, genuine crystals made on memory wire. Every bracelet is unisex, and they're also aromatherapy. The cool part is the black onyx charm that is on the bracelet. It scans to your cell phone, connecting you to their Wellness Hub Elevate. You can also access their Wellness Hub Elevate on your computer or tablet. You just have to sign into your account. The bracelet gives you a 12-month membership. It has over 200 pieces of self-care content, from motivational tips, meditations, breathing exercises on the theme of your bracelet, printable journals, and so much more. The content is ever growing. And that's not all. The bracelet also gives you lifetime access to their Elevate Together Club, which meets monthly via Zoom. Each month is themed to give you actionable takeaways to elevate your life. And with this podcast episode, you get 40% off your purchase order by using the code MindsetPodcast. Use that code MindsetPodcast for 40% off. Just go to DiscoverOmnia.com. DiscoverOmnia.com, code MindsetPodcast for 40% off. Get your bracelet today. I remember him giving no instructions, just like, welcome. And then he was like, everybody line up. And then I'm looking around and I'm like, monkey see, monkey do. So I just lined up. And then he said down, and everybody jumped down in a push-up position. So I jumped down a push-up position, monkey see, monkey do. And then he was like, down, down. And he would say down. I think he said down, up, down, up. I actually don't even remember. But I remember the first thing we did was push-ups. And I remember like wanting to quit 7 times in the first minute. I was like, he just started. And my arms were hurting. I didn't know when he was going to end. He doesn't know when he's going to end. I was like, there was so much. I just wanted this to end. I was like, what was I thinking doing this? What was I thinking? And then we got up, and he said, he pointed to where we were going to run, Tower 17 and back. He said, warm up run, Tower 17 and back, go. And as we're running, he's like, it's a race. I was like, what? It's a race, a warm up run. A warm up run is not a race. Like, he needs to relook up that definition. And I'm running, and then it's like, it's on soft sand, and then it becomes hard sand for a nanosecond, and then it's back to soft sand, and everyone's sprinting. And these guys were like I mean, they could have ordered a pizza by the time I got back from the run. They were so far. I felt like they had like rockets on their boots, and I just didn't get the rockets on the boots. They were so fast. I was not, and I was struggling to say the least, just struggling. Then we got back, lined up, and I don't remember what was next. I just remember the whole entire time sucked. The whole entire time was hard. The whole it was challenging, really. It was just I was very, very, very painful. I think I ran more that day than I ever did in my entire life. And I was an athlete growing up. I played softball, soccer, and basketball. They are running sports, or at least basketball and soccer are. And, you know, I think I ran more in the in those in that day, those few hours than I did all 18 years of playing sports. And we did sit-ups, we did flutter kicks, we did bear crawls, we did push-ups, and it was just like a rotation of all that stuff. And at one point we ran down, like, training starts at the top of the beach and then it ends towards the bottom of the beach. And as we get down towards the bottom of the beach, he does surf torture. And well, he does like sugar cookie stuff, which I didn't even know what he meant. He said, sugar cookie, go. And then, like I said, it's just monkey see, monkey do. You just run into the surf, you get soaking wet, you get onto the sand, you roll around, and you become a sugar cookie, really. It's what it is. You're covered in sand. And then, you're running and doing push-ups and sit-ups and flutter kicks as sand is like flailing in your face. Your body is being chafed as you're running. It's just uncomfortable. You're just super uncomfortable. And now you're even more heavy because everything's soaking wet. And the sand, like, because everything's all tucked in, like the sand just finds finds pockets to stay in. So, which it just weighs you down. And I remember when we did the surf torture, everyone had to lay down in the water and Coach Mac, that he actually told me, like, later, he was like, I saw the lights go out in your eyes when I said get in the water. And he's like, I just knew, like, from seeing that you're scared of the water. And you could tell I was scared in the water the moment I got into the water, because I started screaming. It really, really took a lot for me to just calm down and calm my body down, because I was so exhausted from all the running and all the other physical activity we're doing. And now we have to lay in the surf, arm in arm. I'm at the end, and really no one's really anchoring me. They're anchoring me on one side, but the other part it's not, because I'm the end. The waves are smashing into us. I'm flying up the beach, down I'm flying everywhere. The water is crashing up into my face. I felt like I couldn't breathe at times. I was like, and when I saw those waves come at me, I was just so scared. I don't know what was going on in my mind. Like, there's many things. I was thinking I was going to drown. I was thinking a shark was going to come and, like, bite my ankles and drag me into the abyss. Like, this is where my mind goes. Remember, I'm a writer, and and I work in the film business. Like, we have imaginations that are just not realistic, but in our minds, they just take over. Clearly, at this point, I have not learned to control my mind. And I just remember wanting to quit so much, but not quitting. And I remember when it was over, it was after 3 hours. And I was like, there was a sense of just, I was so proud of myself. Like, so proud of myself. Like, yeah, I was terrible. Yeah, I was last. Yeah, I struggled tremendously, but I did it. Like, I did it. And it was a feeling unlike anything else. Like, I was so proud of myself. Like, when I got home and I looked at myself in the mirror, like, I was looking at my own hero. I was like, oh my gosh, you got through the day. Like, I was so proud. Like, if I would have quit, I I don't think I would have been able to look at myself in the same way in the mirror, like at all. Like I, I was like, it was amazing. It was an amazing feeling. And Coach Max said something that day that completely changed my life. He said, if you think day one is hard, try day two, because your mind is going to give you every logical excuse as to why you shouldn't show up. And every single excuse, like I just said, is logical. So it's going to make sense. And that's when you find out how tough you really are, how strong your mindset is, because you have to go to battle with you. And that's the hardest battle you're ever going to face. So I remember we spoke on the phone after that, and I thanked him so much for allowing me to come to training. I felt like that one moment of training, like changed my life. It changed my life and changed who I was. Like the girl that showed up that day was not the same girl who left. Like I was totally a different person. And I remember saying to Coach Mac, like, so you said day two's even harder, and I'm here for the hard stuff. So can I come back? And for those of you that are like, yeah, he just wanted your money. It's a free program, by the way. It's a nonprofit, it's a free program. So he could have said no. And he was like, of course, we would love to have you. And so they do training twice a week, by the way. It's Sunday and Tuesday in person. And then you have training during the week that you have to film and submit. And there's also what's it called? Coaching, like on the then they also like do a Zoom calls on brain chemistry and stuff like that. So it's like it's an incredible program. It's not just physical, it's mental as well. It's a whole package. So I was like really submerged in this Navy SEAL prep program. I was completely in it. However, I didn't get to go to Tuesday training because my family was in town and we were going to San Diego. So I remember waking up the next morning, like I couldn't walk. I couldn't move. I was like a complete hunchback. And it lasted until Wednesday. Like I almost went to urgent care. It hurt so bad to lay down, to get up, to walk. I mean, my whole body, it was in serious shock. Like I said, I grew up an athlete. I don't think I ever worked that hard, ever. And my team won championships. Like we were like Division I, like we were good. So yeah, that was pretty funny. And Saturday comes around and oh gosh, is he so correct. Couldn't sleep again, knowing I had to go there, knowing the pain that it was, like knowing how challenging that training is, knowing what my body went through all week and the pain it felt. Like when Saturday came around, I could not sleep. And then Sunday rolls around. I usually left my place at like 7:40 to be there by 8:15. Training started at 8:30. And I didn't leave until the very, very last second. I remember like every excuse possible. You're not a Navy SEAL. You're not going to be a Navy SEAL. You're not even in the military. You're not even enlisted. Like, you're female. You don't need this. You proved it last week that you don't quit. Like, you got that. What do you need? It was just supposed to be one day. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? My family thought I was absolutely bonkers as well. Like why I would even subject myself to this. But I showed up. I made it. I did it. I won that battle. I won that battle against my mindset stronger. So that was a big test that I aced. And then that day there was, so in Team Eagle 1, there was a female in the program. She just wasn't there my day, but now she was back and she was in it. She's like, oh my God, she was so good. She was really good. I think she was going for like pararescue or something like that. And then I think it was that day, there was another female that joined. She is in the military now, and she was going the special forces route as well. But I didn't know that. It was like her first day of training. And I was thinking like, she's a civilian just like me, testing this out. So like in my mind, I was like, because suddenly I'm still last. Like this person was, this girl was crushing it. This other girl was like, oh my God, she was absolutely incredible. She was always in the front. She was incredible. And everyone was great. I was just like, everyone was so good. Like, I'm so terrible. Like, I didn't even improve. And so all this stuff was going in my mind. I was so judgy, but I was like, listen, I'm here. I made it. This is the last day. That's it. Like, I don't ever have to come back. Just make it through today. Like, I had to just prove to myself that I could make it to day 2. That was it. I proved it. I'm here. I'm not quitting, and that's it. And then I could finish and go to kidnapping. So, and I remember we did like physical tests that day. I remember we had to do pull-ups, and that's when I found out like I can't do a pull-up. When I was younger, I was able to do a pull-up, no problem. Now problem. I couldn't do one. Like he was like, do a pull-up. And I remember like, well, we have video of it, which I will put on YouTube. Well, here's the video. And for those that are listening, go on YouTube and watch it. I'm not kidding when I said I was tiny. They lifted me up. I couldn't reach the bar. And then Coach Mac was like, okay, now lift yourself up. I swear I thought my body was just going to go up. Like I had no idea that it was going to be hard. And he was like, lift it up. And I'm like, I'm really trying. Like I am like full force trying to lift. Nothing is moving. Like I am barely getting up like at all. Like nothing is moving. And then he was like, okay. And then there was one of the guys behind me that like lifted me up and did the pull up, like taught my body like how to correctly do a pull up and stuff like that. And I remember just being like, oh God, like, could I be even more weak? Like, and even more small? Like, and then it was funny though, because like in my mind, I'm like, everyone's laughing at me. Everyone's judging me. I was like, no, the only person that was judging me and laughing at me was me. Like, I learned, well, first of all, they helped me. Nobody was snickering or making fun or anything like that. And everyone was like, just had respect for everyone that was there. Like, we're in one of the hardest military prep programs in the country. And these guys were true teammates because they wanted you to do well. Like they were rooting for you and they would help you in any way. Like there were times I felt like I was like on The Bachelorette. I mean, there were times like if I didn't have a water or like I ran out of water or like I didn't have a protein bar with me, like 5 hands just came at me with stuff. It was amazing. It was incredible. Like they were an amazing set of people, like amazing. And what we went through together, I mean, it's like you really form your own little, it's like family in a way, you know? There's a connection there. There's a very, very special connection. And I remember just like, I don't know what made me continue, but I just kept going. Like I showed up on Tuesdays, I showed up on Sundays, and I stayed in it until I left California, like in June. So I think it ended up being a total of eight weeks that I was in the program. And the kidnapping was right in the middle. So I did 4 weeks of Navy SEAL training, weekend kidnapping, and then 4 more weeks of Navy SEAL training. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It was really, really challenging. I broke down. I think it was week 4, broke down just hysterically crying because I didn't feel like I was getting better. Like I just still felt like I was just so weak. And I would be running during the week. I would be going to the gym. I would be doing the stuff that I'm supposed to be doing. And there's like I felt like there was no improvement. But the thing is then that I learned after the fact was like shaving time off your run it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And I shaved 2 minutes off my mile, which was pretty amazing. But I didn't see it that way because I still see myself as last. I still was last. So even though, and by the way, if I'm still last shaving 2 minutes off my mile, like these guys were just, oh God, they were all incredible. Every single one of them. And I couldn't do a pull-up. Still, I was still terrified of the water. I mean, like I just felt like nothing improved. And there were so many times though where I can now celebrate the wins that happened. Like I remember there was a Sunday where I woke up and it was raining and it was really cold. And I started texting Coach Mac and I was like, I'm sick, or I don't know. I said, I don't feel good. And that's the thing. Like I didn't sleep that night. It was raining. It was cold. I wasn't feeling my best. So I was like, great, all these excuses, I'm not showing up. So I remember texting him and I remember like looking at the clock and now it's like 7:50. Like it's now or never. Hit send. And I hit delete. I got into my car and I made it right on time. And I remember saying to myself, like, it's going to feel good right now. It's going to feel good right now when you hit send and sit down on your couch and go back to sleep. But it's not going to feel good when you wake up. Like you're not going to feel good all day today. You're actually going to be super disappointed in yourself. And the thing is that I live with me. Like that's it. Like I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, I am so proud of you. I want to be able to look at myself and see my own hero looking back at me. And the only way I can do that is when I win the battles against me. And the only way I'm going to win those battles against me is by doing what I need to do, not what I want to do. You know, I had to learn how to push my feelings aside and do it. Because like, yeah, I don't feel like waking up, but I still need to wake up. I don't feel like going to Navy SEAL prep training. I don't feel like going to the gym. I don't feel like going to work. Well, there's a lot of things that won't feel like doing, and we have to just get up and do it and suck it up. And that's okay, my mindset. And every single time I do that, I'm stronger. I'm stronger than my mindset. So it was an amazing journey and experience. Like I learned that I am very strong mentally. And I learned that I am strong physically. I mean, by the time I finished Navy SEAL training, I gained 10 pounds of muscle, I finally hit triple digits on the scale at 31 years old. I finally did it. Which was definitely interesting. And I learned about gym equipment. I got a gym membership. I still didn't love it. But I loved how strong I was getting. Like I loved how mentally tough I was getting. Like I felt like a true warrior. Like I really felt for the first time, like super, super strong mentally and physically. And there were so many lessons that I learned throughout this whole entire thing. Like, I'll talk about the biggest lesson that I learned. The biggest lesson that I learned was the teammate next to me is more important than me. And this lesson saved me in SEER, and it's really helped me throughout life because I've come to realize I was never really a great teammate. Even though I played sports and stuff like that, I was the goalie in soccer. I was a shortstop in softball, and I also played, I think it was left field or something. And sometimes I was pitcher and things, but I didn't I don't know. I wasn't a great team player. I was cheered everyone on and stuff like that, but I didn't really want to be there. You know, I was like, I'd rather just go right to the game, play, and that was it. You know, I hated practices and practicing before the game, all that stuff. I wasn't a good teammate. Bit selfish. And And when Coach Mac said the teammate next to me is most important than me, because he would say lessons throughout training. He would just say lessons throughout training. And I remember when he said that, I was like looking at my teammates and I was like, I'm important too. I mean, and I'm thinking to myself, like, if we're in battle together and it's me versus them, like, it's going to be me every time. Like, I'm going to choose me over everybody else because, well, this is my life. I mean, and talk about selfish. I know. And this is all that's going through my mind. And I, he kept saying it and saying it. It says it like every week. And I'm like, I don't get it. And then one day, it was a Tuesday of training session. It was Tuesdays are in the evenings. So the sun is gone. It's dark out. It's absolutely freezing. The water is freezing. There's no sun to warm us up. And I remember it was the very, very end of training. We were all standing on the beach. We just got out of the water. So we were like fresh wet. And the wind was blowing. We're all shivering. I had those bumps on my arms. All the hairs are standing up. Teeth are chattering. I'm purple. And Coach Mac is talking, and all I'm thinking about is how cold I am, how much pain I'm in. When is this going to end? Is he ever going to stop talking? And I look at the guy next to me. I think his name was Clark. I'm 90% sure it was Clark. And his teeth are chattering. All the hairs are standing up. He has bumps all over him. He's purple. His lips are purple. And I remember going, oh my God, he is just as cold and miserable as me. And I moved a little bit closer to him. So my arm was on top of his arm, or like we were touching. And he looked at me because obviously I didn't expect someone to touch them. And I was like coaching him through my teeth, like without anyone knowing I'm talking. And I'm like, just breathe. You've got this. Breathe. Focus on your breath. And I am coaching him and also putting my arm against his and like trying to rub it a little bit to create some friction to keep him warm. And suddenly I wasn't feeling so cold. Suddenly I wasn't focused on the time. Suddenly all the pain was going away. And then I was like, oh my God, I get it. The teammate next to me is always more important than me, because when I'm focused on my teammate, I am not so concerned about myself. Like I am completely out of my head. I am not overthinking. It's not about me. It's about them. And if I can focus on my team and help them get through it, we're all going to survive. We're all going to come out better and come out on the other side. And I'm also going to be able to make smart choices because I'm not overthinking. I'm just executing. And we learned about just executing through Kyle Bucket's episode. You guys should definitely listen to that because that really changed my life. And I wish I would have had that simple advice when I was doing SIL training. But anyway, it took me a while, but that was the moment when I was like, oh my God, my teammate next to me is always more important than me. And he said a bunch of other stuff, like I said, day one is not the hardest. It was day two, which made a lot of sense to me. And when I finished, by the way, I was able to do 4 pull-ups, which was really cool. Like I said, I'm going to do a SEER episode and talk about that, but I crushed SEER. I did this so good. And I really owe it to this training. He talked a lot about transitioning from going up to standing up, to transitioning down, to transitioning to a push-up position, sit-up position, all this stuff. And you had to do it quickly. And he said, transition is everything. Transition is what's going to save your life. And transition is what actually saved my life in SEER. We're going to talk about that, but in that episode, but transition is what stops you. I mean, we use transitioning every day as a civilian, by transitioning in another lane so this other car doesn't hit us, or when we're crossing the street or something like that. Like transition happens all the time to save us from life and death, which, we probably don't realize how many times we were super close to death and we transitioned to save our lives. So he did a lot of lead from the front, and I was like, well, this doesn't pertain to me. It has the word front in it, and I'm never there. But I learned that you could lead from the front and not be in the front. And leading from the front is showing up. Leading from the front is giving it your all. Leading from the front is putting out and never quitting. And that's leading from the front. It's, it's being that person that everyone looks to and is like, wow, like she could quit, but she doesn't. Like she could not show up, but she's here. And the most important message I really learned was belonging. And that's how I ended up writing my children's book, which then sparked the memoir, which then sparked this podcast. And my children's book, You Really Truly Do Belong, is about an alien's journey to Earth finding belonging. And the last day of Navy SEAL training on Saturday, because what happened to me was pretty amazing. So for the last 6 weeks, I was just getting down on myself, like all the time. I was like, it like got to a point like where like after the 4 weeks, it got to a point where I was like, gosh, like, why am I not even like in the middle? Like, why am I still last? Like, what is going on? And I had like a life teacher at the time, who I met with once a month, and I was telling her what I was doing. And I'm like, I'm just getting frustrated. Like I'm always last, and I'm not very good. And it weighs on me. And she's like, well, when you were a kid and you were part of a team, did you always feel like you belonged to that team? And I said, no. I guess that's where like the whole not a good teammate popped up. And she was like, yeah, because you never felt like you belonged with everyone, and you always felt like an outsider. And I'm like, that's exactly how I used to feel as a child. Like, even though I had so many friends in so many different groups, I never had like a group that I belonged to. And I always longed for that. I always had social issues because I was always looking for a group that like was like my clique, that I belonged to. And I never had that. So I always felt like an outsider, even though I belonged technically to all the groups in the school. I didn't want that. I wanted to be with one. And and so I said, yeah, that's how I always felt like my whole entire childhood and life. And as I grew up into adult life, like I always felt like a bit like an outsider. And she's like, okay, well, there's a limited belief there. So let's tackle that. Let's see ourselves in the front. Let's see ourselves belonging with the group. Let's say, I belong. I belong. I belong with the pack. I belong with these guys. So I remember now things shifted week 7 and week 8, the last 2 weeks of training, where as I'm running, even if I'm last, I'm smiling. And I'm like, I belong with these guys. I belong with these guys. I'm in the front. I see myself in the front. And there were moments where I was actually with everybody. There were moments where like I wasn't completely in the front, but I was there. I was with the group. Like I was with the pack. And I kept saying that. I'm like, I'm with the pack. I feel good. Like all this stuff. And I would say that, by the way, even throughout all of Navy SEAL training, because I remember like, I always hated it. Like, and I always would lie. Like I would lie to myself. I would be like, I love this. This is so much fun. Running is so much fun. And I'd be smiling and I was working out with everybody, and I'd do my best to like, just like laugh throughout it when I was by myself. Like I would, I would just get my laughs in. I would smile as much as I could. Even through the pain, I would be fighting my mind constantly, telling myself how much I love it, even though I hated it. And the thing is that like, I did like it. I just didn't like the pain that came with it. There was a lot of things that I guess like, because I didn't feel the improvement, I didn't feel, but so I always had to be fighting my mind the entire time on shifting to positive. Anytime anything negative came in, I was like, I was swatting them all away. Like I didn't even let them in. It was like, I hate, no, I don't hate, I love. I wouldn't even let myself finish these sentences. I was like, I was like Karate Kid, like really, really swatting everything away, wax on, wax off. And, so anyway, with the belonging thing, it was like the last day of training where I was like, it clicked, like that another light bulb moment, like the teammate next to me is more important than me. Aha moment. That's what the belonging moment. I was like, oh my God, I get it. Like belonging isn't about fitting in. It's not about looking like everyone else. I was never going to look like everyone else. I'm like 5 feet tall. I'm not going to grow that tall. Like these, like I said, their muscles are huge. I'm just getting over 100 pounds. Like, I'm a female. There were so many different things that I can't change about myself to fit in. Because let me tell you something, like when we were training, I stood out. Like you could easily point me out, not a problem. I did not fit in, but that didn't mean that I didn't belong. And I learned that belonging is showing up as your true, authentic self. It means knowing that you're enough and you belong there and you put out and you do the best job that you can and you show up. You show up as you and for this team. That's true belonging. You belong there. And that clicked. And when that clicked, man, my life changed. My whole life changed. Like I was doing comedy at the time and I was transitioning to comedy in New York. And once I learned about belonging, it was like doors opened up in the new comedy circle in New York at the time. And things just worked for me. Like when I would meet a new group of people or when I go to a meeting, like it was just an instant connection all the time. Like there was no awkwardness or anything like that, because when you have that belonging, when you know what belonging is, it's like, you show up as 100% you, and that's it. Like you don't have to pretend to be anybody else. You don't have to tiptoe or anything like that. It's like, no, like you show up as completely who you are. And that Navy SEAL program changed my life. And it taught me belonging, which is something I've been searching for my entire life. And I said to the team, like, thank you guys so much for teaching me this valuable lesson. I am going to go and write a children's book about this for 7-year-old me who wishes she had this message when she was a little girl. And so I left Navy SEAL training that Sunday. Monday, I went to Joshua Tree. I spent the night and wrote my children's book right there. 4 hours, wrote the whole entire book. And then a year and a half later, I published it. And then I became a speaker and I'd go to a bunch of schools and do author visits, and I would read my book and I would share my message. And I always shared on how I ended up writing my book, which was through this Navy SEAL training program. And in the book, there was a spread of people on the beach in fatigues, a white t-shirt, combat boots, and they're lifting rocks. And there is a female on that spread in the fatigues, in the uniform. And that's me, 7-year-old me. I gave the illustrator my photo when I was 7 with glasses and bangs. I was adorable. And she put me in the book. And I said, it has to be on this spread. It has to be on this page because this is where I found belonging. And it was so cool. And I share that with people when I am doing my speakings, and I share how I ended up finding belonging. And, when we used to train on the beach, and this is exactly where I found it, in this uniform. And everyone always asked about the Navy SEAL thing, like how you ended up doing it, why you ended up doing it, and all this stuff. And I said, you know what, I'm going to write the memoir, Training with a SEAL. And because I was already touring with my children's book and in the marketing author mode, I learned all the stuff that I should have done when it first came out. That's what happens when you do something for the first time. You learn and you make so many mistakes and failures, which is awesome because you learn more from that than your success. And I said, okay, if I'm writing this memoir, like I need to market this book like way better than I did the children's book. So I decided, hey, how cool would it be to do a podcast? I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while. I was going to do a podcast with other children's authors and stuff. And I said, it would be even cooler, a podcast on special forces, because I get to connect with some of the coolest human beings on the planet. I get to hear their story, and I get inspired by them. And they share valuable wisdom that I put into practice. Like after I talk to them, I edit their episodes to come onto the show. For all you Patreons out there, every Friday I release a field note episode. And that is where I take the advice that one of our guests has given all of us, and I put it into practice for the week. And then I record an episode called Field Notes for our Patreon members. And I do a debrief on how it was and how my life went. So this podcast is becoming more than just, marketing for my new memoir, Training with a SEAL. It's become so much more than that. Like it's become inspiration for me. It's become motivation for me. It's changed my life. Like I said earlier, like speaking with Kyle Bucket and hearing him give the advice of just execute, like stop overthinking. You're making it 10 times harder for yourself. I'm like, oh my God, that's all I do is overthink, just execute. And here I am taking these cold showers and thinking about it and spending 30 minutes trying to get into the shower. And now it's like, I turn it on, I jump in. I mean, I get in anyway, just you have to do it. Like it's not going away. So why fight it all the time? So it's just like little lessons like that have impacted and changed my life. And I get to meet these guys too and build a relationship and a connection with them. And they're all so inspiring and so motivating. And it's become amazing. So literally that experience, that one question of, do you think I could survive a kidnapping? And my mom saying no, like turned into a business, like a podcast, a business, a book. I mean, oh my gosh, it's been incredible. And then to act upon it, like to be like, I got to find a kidnapping soul. Oh my God, I got to find a Navy SEAL. And I just wouldn't give up. I wouldn't give up until I found it. And I went out there and I found the kidnapping school. I found the Navy SEAL and I stuck with it. And what was interesting is Coach Max said, he's never said that before. He's never said in training, if you think day one is hard, try day two. And like I said, if he didn't say that, I wouldn't have went back for day two. And I Sear definitely would have went in a whole nother direction, by the way. And I also wouldn't be here. So it's kind of crazy on how, looking back, like everything just lined up to get me right here in this moment to talk to all of you and share with all of you my story. And I'll do another one on the various days of training, the struggles that I went through, more lessons that I've learned. If you guys have any questions, ask away. And, we'll do some more episodes like these. I'll definitely do a SEAR episode, but thank you guys so much for listening. Next week, we're going to have an amazing guest on the show. You do not want to miss it. So thanks for listening, and please like, comment, share, subscribe now, become a Patreon member so you can support the show and get extra goodies that only our Patreons get. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.